get started. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, people, to Montana's 2020 Women's March in Helena. Yay! Woo-hoo! And yay to all of you. Thank you. You know, many of you have traveled here from all corners of Montana. Yeah, we were expecting a busload from Kalispell. All right, Kalispell. All right, we're expecting a busload from Missoula. Yay! We're expecting a bus from Great Falls. Great Falls, are you here yet? Yes, you are. All right. Carpooling from Bozeman and Billings. Are you here? Okay. And we're all here, so let's hear it. Montanans. Yay! Yay! Well, you know, we are one of hundreds of women's marches going around the country today, with women rising marches, you know, to harness the energy and the power of diverse women, and that includes trans women and people who are gender non-conforming. Everyone is included. This marks the suffrage centennial. 100 years since women got the right to vote. Most women. We've still got a lot to do. One of the reasons we come together is to prevent violence in our homes, in our communities, and in our world. So before we start with our rousing rally, I'd like a moment of silence for peace in our world. Thank you. That was peaceful. All right now. So you are all women leaders, and we're powerful united. No one can divide us when we're united. One of Helena's most powerful women leaders is the executive director of the YWCA. Jen Gursky. Jen is a former legislator for our great state of Montana. She is a mom of Parker, and for the past year, she has served Helena women and families at the helm of the YWCA. So with that, Jen Gursky.
Good day, Montana! I am Jen Gursky. I'm the Executive Director of YWCA Helena, an organization that has been dedicated to empowering women, eliminating racism, and promoting peace, justice, and dignity for all for over 100 years. It is an honor to be welcoming to you to this space of collective and empowering protest and power. Today we not only stand on an infant 3-year legacy of a march that happened in 2017, but on the immortal legacies of those who have gone before us. Today we celebrate success for women, and yet are challenged once again to remind our nation, our neighbors, our family, and sometimes the other half, what remains undone. We celebrate the suffrage of white women today, But as a white woman, I recognize that our Indigenous, Black, Asian, and Hispanic sisters got the right to vote 45 years later. And it wasn't until 1980 that women sought to vote in equal numbers to men, 60 years later. We still need feminism, we still need unity, and we still need to march. Today, we bring attention to gender-based violence. 1 in 3 women will face gender-based violence in their lifetime. That's 30%. 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence. 38% of murders of women are committed by an intimate partner. These stats don't know socioeconomic bounds. We still need feminism, we still need unity, and we still need to march. Today, we highlight disproportionate spending and access to healthcare for women. Our rights to privacy with our doctor continues to be something debated, even though we thought that was settled 47 years ago. And while access to birth control advances our economic empowerment and autonomy over our futures, universal access continues to be a struggle. We still need feminism, we still need unity, and we still need to march. This list goes on. Equal pay for equal work, freedom to move about in our world without discrimination, enacting climate policies that will create a beautiful and safe future for our children, a right to self-determination and economic prosperity, and gosh darn it, the right to be a woman and be equal. And I'm good and mad about it. Because as Rebecca Traister says, women's anger can be revolutionary. Today I welcome you here. We, as the YWCA of Helena, welcome you here. I encourage you to use your anger today as a motivator. Use injustice as a catalyst. Unify, learn, activate. Because we still need feminism, we still need unity, and we still need to march. Thank you.
And Parker. Let's give another hand for Jen Gursky and Parker. You know, we're marching today, so maybe Parker won't have to anymore. Yeah, in our dreams, right? Thank you. So, next up is a real treat, singer-songwriter Judy Fiel and the Montana Women's Chorus. I'm going to sing your praises, Judy Fiel. So, Judy was born and raised here in Montana. Lucky her. But I soon became a Montanan. So Judy taught herself to play guitar at age 14. And she's been entertaining and leading people with her musical skills ever since. Once more. Okay. Didn't know you'd get a comedy act up here, did you? In Judy's 50-year performing career, she's recorded over 20 albums, written over 300 songs, founded multiple music camps and choruses, and has sung at hundreds of political rallies and gatherings just like this, including the very first Women's March in 2017 on the Capitol that drew 16,000 united folks. Woo! So Judy is joined today by the Rockstar Chorus and local musicians Wilbur Raymond on saxophone, and MJ Williams on trombone. Please give a rousing welcome to Judy Fiel and the Montana Women's Chorus singing the Keb Mo Roseanne Cash hit, Put a Woman in Charge.
Thank you, everyone. I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning just a little concerned about, not about our singing part of the program, but about the benediction that I was supposed to read at the end. And so I wrote a little poem, and it will be more like an invocation than a benediction. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being here today, the she's, the he's, the they's, the ones running for office, the ones knocking at the doors asking, are you registered to vote? Do you care? Thank you for being here today, the ones who know that this is not the time to avert our eyes or drown ourselves in the comforts of the material world. We've got the way too wealthy and the way too poor. We've got sexual predators in office hiding behind church doors. We've got children locked in cages with parents standing at the borders, hungry. We've got young men and women locked in prisons or poverty, looking for hope, knowing that they mean more than we give them credit for. We've got children and teachers in lockdowns in our classrooms, and a Congress held hostage by the gun lobby. We've got girls dying on the prairie, forgotten but not by all. We've got unhoused sleeping in the streets. Thank you for being here today. Can we remember, or at least imagine, the sound of buffalo who once walked on this very ground? Their ghosts snort and stamp their feet. Pay attention, they say. 1 billion animals have died in the fires in Australia. The oceans are rising while we guzzle our gas and bury our shores in plastic. But we have shown up today. We have shown up to resist and to affirm that life is a big picture. Death is part of it. Struggle is the in-between, and we are in it. Thank you for being here today. We're the ones who believe this nation could be doing more. This nation is us, we the people. Take your neighbor by the hand, look your neighbor in the eyes, believe in the positive power of the vision that America the beautiful can indeed be beautiful. Thank each other for being here today. Did not begin.
as true today as it was when I stood before you 3 years ago, and so I'm going to say it again. I'm Rachel Carroll Rivas, and I fight white supremacy for a living. I work for LGBTQ equality when I wake up in the morning. I pound the pavement for economic justice on the weekend. On my lunch hour when I take one, I find ways to connect social justice and environmentalism. In the evenings, I scheme with my friends on how to elect progressives in my community. Each waking hour, my phenomenal partner Diego and I create a home for the future as we raise our daughter and our son to be feminists. I begin each day with a fire in my belly and a commitment to work in solidarity with each of you through the Montana Human Rights Network. Before I have the pleasure of introducing some of our speakers today, I think it's incredibly important, especially as a white woman, that we take a moment to acknowledge the land that we stand on is Indigenous land. A shared space shared by a number of Indigenous tribes in our region that I am a borrower of, that I am a guest of. And I encourage each of you in every space that you enter, where you have a moment to take the time and take the space to do an land acknowledgement, to begin that practice in your work and in your home and in your churches. So with that, I have the pleasure of introducing Kathleen Williams. Kathleen is a 3-term state legislator, a sportswoman, and a music lover. She is a proven fighter with a 36-year career in natural resource planning and policy. Kathleen represented Gallatin County for 6 years in the legislature, passing bills that held insurers accountable and supported small business. She is carrying a torch today for equality, for equity, for ethics, and for civility. Let us all welcome Kathleen Williams.
Montanans gathered in freezing temperatures on our Capitol lawn and demanded to be heard. It was a beautifully American gathering, exercising our rights enshrined in the First Amendment. Women and their allies gathered to speak up and to rise up. And we haven't stopped, have we? Thanks to this sustained activism, we've made progress. We've stood up for women's rights. We've stood up for the rights of those looking to come to this country to work hard and build a better life. We've stood for the rights of those who, thanks to the status quo, hadn't been heard before, and those who were told who they could or couldn't marry. We've stood up for dignity, intelligence, compassion, opportunity, and collaboration. We've stood up for the things that have made this country and our democracy so great. The doubters said this was just a phase. They said the movement wouldn't last. How wrong they were, right? There are more female CEOs of Fortune 500 companies than ever before. A record number of women are now helping write our country's laws in Congress. Soon to be one more. A member of the Blackfeet Nation who grew up with no running water or electricity, fought the federal government for 13 years and won. 2 women just spent 7 hours repairing the International Space Station from outside, in space. And who makes up the majority of the workforce? Who are the people making this economy run? It's women. We now mark 100 years that many women had the right to vote across the nation. And just this past week, after decades of work, we all earned a victory when Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Go Virginia! And maybe we'll soon have a female president. People who don't understand Montana may seem surprised that in a so-called red state, we would have so many people speaking up against the status quo. But it's in Montana's DNA to stand up, to speak out, to rise up and break down barriers. Montana has a legacy of strong women, the single female homesteaders, the wives who ran the ranches when their husbands were in World War I, the first national female legislator in the entire world. It was Montana who sent Jeannette Rankin to the U.S. House of Representatives. Yes, Montana put a woman in charge before women's suffrage was enshrined in the Constitution. Jeannette, in her words, was deeply conscious of the responsibility resting on her shoulders as the only woman with the power to vote in Congress. She used her power to fight for peace, for workers' rights, and of course, the right for women to vote. She displayed courage in doing what she thought was right. She was the only vote against U.S. entry into both world wars. Go, Jeannette. Her legacy is a defining part of our history and one we can look to for inspiration in the future. One of standing on principle, speaking for the voiceless, and pushing us to a better country. But what is also significant about Jeannette Rankin's commitment is beyond her time in office. After her first term, she ran unsuccessfully for the U.S. Senate. She lost in the Republican primary and then ran as an independent in the same election for the general. Talk about persistence, right? Yeah. Throughout her life, she spoke out on behalf of peace, and kudos to Missoula that houses the Jeannette Rankin Peace Center, right? Go Missoula. She remained committed to the cause of stamping out child labor. And when war again loomed 20 years later, she ran again for Congress and won. In 1968, she was in her 80s, and she led a 5,000-strong march on Washington to protest the Vietnam War. She even mulled running again for Congress in the 1970s when she was 90 to try to get us out of that war. Talk about conviction, right? Jeannette Rankin remains an inspiration for me and has a story that many of us can relate to. She grew up working alongside her brothers to manage the family ranch. Throughout her life, she was true to her convictions and consistently fought for them. She spoke truth to power. She served on the Public Lands Committee in Congress, a topic we so value today. She eloquently stated the obvious about women. We are half the people. We should be half the Congress, right? Whatever might have been a setback, she got back up and kept fighting. And by the way, she was first elected to Congress 104 years ago. Isn't it time we give her her successor? Let's put a woman in charge. So many of all our stories involve challenges, but also perseverance. After a setback, we stand back, evaluate the situation, get right back in there, and keep fighting. Fighting for the world we want to see for generations to come. And despite our successes, we still have work to do, as Jen mentioned. So many of the values we hold dear are being threatened every day. In recent years, Politicians have spent their time attacking our rights, undermining those who are different from themselves, delivering justice to some but not others, and distracting the nation from what's important and true. Enough is enough. Where's that sign? Yeah. We have to assure people's access to the life-saving health care they need and deserve. We need an America where everyone has the chance to succeed and pursue their own American dream. We need to ensure that every person is valued for who they are, what they offer, and their humanity. After all, we are all American, and we are all in this together. I am constantly inspired by stories of people of all stripes doing amazing things to build the America we want. Kudos to the young people who are standing up and demanding to be heard on issues ranging from our changing climate to school safety to suffocating student debt. And despite, right, yeah, come on. Despite the deck often stacked against them, workers are demanding to be given the fair pay they deserve so they can feed their families and put a roof over their heads. Our Native brothers and sisters are demanding a solution to the disproportionate violence in their lives. And just look at today. Despite society doubting us, women across this country of all stripes are saying, the boys have had their shot, now watch while we get the job done. Put a woman in charge. So when they write our story, let them say that we stood up for what was right. And even against the odds, we kept going. We chose to say no to discrimination. We chose to make sure we weren't left behind by our government. And we chose to stand up and say, I deserve the same opportunities as anyone else because this is what this country is about. So now, 3 years after the 16,000 people gathered in the shadow of our Capitol, I ask you to join me and join with those around you and choose to keep fighting until we get the world we, our children, and our grandchildren deserve. You don't have to be a member of the U.S. House to make a difference. Find 3 people that you don't always agree with or you don't know their politics, and engage with them on the values we all share: honesty, integrity, stateswomanship, accessibility. We still have so much in common. Speak out in your communities and in the press so your neighbors can be exposed to important information and views. Suggest policy change and advocate to your elected officials on issues that matter to you. Be a leader in your community and a mentor to your colleagues, your children, and yes, your parents. Run for office. Whether it's school board, county commission, or otherwise. It said it takes a woman 7 asks to run for office. So, run. No more excuses, right? There's plenty of help out there. Emily's List, the National Organization for Women, have backed my candidacy, and I'm so grateful. Carol's List will help. There are people all over that will help you. And what do we say to the tiresome few remaining doubters who say, yeah, but can a woman win? We tell the truth with a resounding yes. So let's hear it. Can a woman win? Yes. Will women win? Yes. Will we build a better world? Yes. Absolutely. Change starts with a choice, the choice to stand up, right wrongs, and make your voice heard. Our state, our country need us. Some of us will run, and now we will all march for equity, opportunity, compassion, justice. Jeannette did it. Let's keep her legacy strong. Thank you.
Let's give it up again for our next Congresswoman from Montana, Kathleen Williams. Yes, all right. and women can win. They have to win on the local, state, and federal level. We have a couple people here in spirit who weren't able to make it in person. And, you know, I want to also say we're talking about our next Congresswoman. I think it's about time Montana had a woman attorney general that we never ever had before. Well, Kim Dudick is in Bozeman today at a family commitment. We all get that, right? She did want me to say, to thank you, all of you, for your commitment to equality and for marching together today to make clear that women's rights are not a bargaining chip and are not on the chopping block. As I travel this state, Kim Dudick says, it becomes clear to me every day that we need strong, proven elected officials who will prioritize stopping violence against women. Yeah. Who will fight to safeguard women's reproductive rights. Yeah. And who will demand equality for everyone, regardless of gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or identity. Stand strong and thank you. We also have in the crowd a representative of U.S. Senator Jon Tester's office. Senator Tester is kind of tied up today in Washington getting ready for the U.S. Senate impeachment trial. Yeah! And Robin Madison is here representing Senator Jon Tester, who, as we know, is a champion for women's rights. And Robin, wherever you are, can you raise your hand, scream, yell, jump up and down so everybody can give you and Jon Tester's office an applause. Yay! Okay, one more from Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney. He is marching in Bozeman with his family. 3 years ago, he says, I was inspired when we rallied together during the first Women's March right here in Helena. In Montana, in America, and across the world, women and supporters stood together, rejecting an administration that stoked hatred, division, and fear, which we are not about. We reject. We saw record numbers of women running for office, and the work to ensure dignity, respect, and equality for all women continues. I am so proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with the strong Montana women who are fighting for a brighter future for us all. So we are gathered today to honor all women and all people who support women across the generations. I'd like to give a shout out to Auntie Alice, 92 years old. She's here today. Rebecca Johnson's auntie. She's seen a thing or two and been through a fight or two. I'm going to turn now to the voices of our younger generations, our youth activists. Elsie Harrington.
Let's go! Elsie!
Is a junior at Helena High School and a chair of the board of the Montana Youth Action, a youth-founded, youth-led organization focused on promoting political understanding and providing opportunities for civic engagement among young Montanans. And now, here's Elsie Harrington.
Hello!
Montana Youth Action because this confusing, complicated political system that we have can seem overwhelming. The more you learn about the political climate, the more it can seem like you're going in over your head. But you're not. So Montana Youth Action's goal is to help give young people an understanding of politics and find ways to get involved. Because this is our future. We don't want it just handed to us. We want to have a hand in designing it. So I want to speak to the young women who are here today. Girls, this is our democracy too. Just because those of us who are under 18 can't vote doesn't mean that policy and the cultural climate established by politics doesn't also affect us. And it doesn't mean that our voices mean nothing. So do what you can. Show up. Speak your beliefs and speak them loud. We're all people with opinions. Some of us are just louder than others. So take any opportunity you can to raise your own voice. But how do you push yourself into a political space that wasn't designed for young people like us? At the very least, stay informed. Keep up on news and current issues. Look at all sides of a story and make your opinion from there. Don't let them tell you that you're uneducated or that you don't know what you're talking about, because young people can know so much. So stay informed and come to marches. Call your representatives. Participate in phone banks. Register voters. Intern. Testify in front of committees. Join Montana Youth Action. If you can vote, by all means, please vote. Educate yourself about the world you live in and take part in it. It's the only way change can happen. As Bryce Bennett reminded us at Montana Youth Action's launch party last night, we aren't just the leaders of tomorrow. We can be the leaders of today. To all the young women in the crowd today, you make me so happy. You make me so hopeful. You have come out, you have shown up, and you are doing what you can do. So I realize that I'm preaching to the choir, but I hope that you never stop singing. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie Harrington of the Montana Youth Action. And I do want to give a shout out to Bryce Bennett. He's going to be our next Secretary of State, and he represents inclusivity of the LGBTQI community. So thank you, Bryce. You're going to be awesome. Raise your hand, wave something like that, guys. So our next speaker is Bela Neyman. Yes, yay, Bella. 16-year-old Bela Neyman is the Shodair Children's Hospital 2019 champion, as well as one of only 10 national champions for the Children's Miracle Network. Yes, yes. Bella was selected by both organizations because of her work and advocacy on mental illness and breaking down stigmas. Bella is a fierce advocate for mental health care of children, teenagers, and adults in Montana. Bela Neyman, a real treat.
Hello! I'm Bella. I'm a normal teenager. I go to school, I have a job, and I hang out with friends. I'm intelligent, but I really hate math. But I understand ratios. Ratios like 1 in 6 people have some form of mental illness. I am one of them. When I was 7, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, severe anxiety, separation anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and began experiencing panic attacks.
I have struggled with thoughts of suicide since then. By the time I was 11, I truly did not believe I would live to see my 13th birthday, let alone stand here and tell you my story. Today, I am 16 years old and I still have mental illness. Unlike a broken leg, it will never heal. I still have thoughts of suicide and know that will continue for the rest of my life. Mental illness hurts me and others every single day. You just can't see it. For me, many days are like being far out in an ocean with uncontrollable waves of highs and lows. To be honest, I'm not sure how I've gotten the courage to stand up here and tell you my story. But let me tell you something. My mental illness does not make me weak. And it does not make anyone else who feels that same pain every day weak. I like to say my mental illness does not define me, but it is a huge part of my life and who I am. And because I am strong, I refuse to accept the stigmas of mental illness, and I'm going to tell my story to break them down. We will stop to help someone who has fallen on the sidewalk, but we will cross the street to avoid someone who is having a mental health crisis. We refuse to talk about mental illness because we are afraid of it. But these are our lives. This is my life. We cannot refuse to talk about something so universal. We cannot refuse to talk about something that is damaging people who want nothing more than to feel normal and to get better. We have the resources in our society. We simply don't use them to help the women, children, and men who are suffering from things like bipolar disorder, anxiety, schizophrenia, and depression. Our country and our state both have the resources to provide treatment, medication, and offer meaningful lives to those of us with mental illness. But we simply choose not to utilize them. We need change today. We need to remove the barriers. So find that one person and ask if they're okay and what you can do to help them. Then ask again tomorrow and the next day and every single day after. We need you here. We need you to fight with us. Thank you.
No fear, no hate. Love makes us great. No fear, no hate. Love makes us great. No fear, no hate. Love makes us great. Again, no fear, no hate. Love makes us great. Yes, thank you. Talk about someone who's breaking down the fear. Oh my gosh, amazing. As co-poet laureates and women from marginalized communities, Melissa Kwansny and Mandy Smoker-Broaddus aim to celebrate poetry as an art that fosters connection, relationships, and bridge building. They produced the anthology of poems in defense of global human rights called I Go to the Ruined Place. Melissa is the author of 6 collections of poetry, most recently, Where Outside the Body is the Soul Today. Mandy is a Fort Peck, Assiniboine, and Sioux tribal member and author of one collection of poetry titled Another Attempt at Rescue. She has served as the Indian Education Director in the state of Montana and currently works for the nonprofit Education Northwest. With that, I welcome Montana Poet Laureates Melissa Kwansny and Mandy Smoker-Broaddus.
Thank you.
As writers and longtime educators, we understand that poetry can provide a source of understanding and hope, something the young and old need desperately in these times of climate crisis, war, and assaults on people's dignity and freedoms.
Through our visits to schools, libraries, and community events during the next 2 years, we hope to collaboratively demonstrate how poetry can speak to issues of diversity and inclusion, landscape and the environment, and culture and history. This is the first time that the laureateship position has been shared by two people. As women, we believe in the creativity inherent in collaboration and hope to demonstrate that in our work together. The poem I'm going to read, I wrote many years ago, yet its purpose remains the same. Hold up to the light and challenge systems of inequality and oppression that exist in large and small ways. As you do that, share the details, no matter how difficult. Question yourself, your own intentions and position, even when that compass points toward privilege and favor. But always, always find the points of light, of clarity, and connection. I'd like to dedicate this poem to Selena Not Afraid, who has not yet come home, but we are praying for you and searching for you. Another attempt at rescue. The time is important here, not because this has been a long winter or because it is my first at home since childhood, but because there is so much else to be unsure of. We are on the brink of an invasion. At a time like this, how is it that when I left only a week ago, there was 3 feet of snow on the ground, and now there is none, not even a single patch holding on in the shadow of the fence line. And to think I paid a cousin $20 to shovel the walk. He and 2 of his buddies, still smelling of an all-nighter, arrived at 7 a.m. to begin their work. When I left them a while later and noticed their ungloved hands, winter made me feel selfish and unsure. This ground seems unsure of itself for its own reasons, and we do not gauge enough of our lives by changes in temperature. When I first began to write poems, I was laying claim to battle. It started with a death that I tried to say was unjust, but not because of the actual dying, but because of what was left. What time of year was that? I still have not yet learned to write of war. I have friends who speak out, as is necessary, with subtle and unsubtle force. But I am from this place, and a great deal has been going wrong for some time now. The 2 young Indian boys who almost drowned last night in the fast rising creek near school are casualties in any case. There have been too many just like them, and I have no way to fix these things. But I will not regret that those boys made it home, or that the cousins used the money at the bar. Still, there are no lights on this street. Still, there is so much mud outside that we carry it indoors with us.
Okay. Mandy and I asked to be nominated together for this position. Such an honor for me to work with her. Everybody had a little bit of resistance to the fact that 2 people would be poet laureates at the same time. It hadn't been done before. Isn't it a great idea? Let's work together.
This poem is called, it's called Where Outside the Body is the Soul Today? Where in the body is the soul today? Anatomy, not astronomy. Look this morning at the deer sleeping on its side in a pile of leaves. Put yourself there, under the stars, protected really from nothing, having to trust the air, or gray solitaire on the bare branch of the extreme cold, where outside the body is the soul today. It will seem as if it is happening all around you, as if the sun had moved into a new phase, pale, breathless, a bottomless blue, a sentimental crochet of clouds at the edgework. The woman who made her friends promise not to parade her in public after she lost her mind found such joy in the choir that they were torn, which is a feeling you have forgotten, hope, one might say, the tilting that is change on the axis. If there is someone in the wind, there is someone in the mountain. If the soul is back there in the child that was harmed, it is also in the older girl who takes her hand, leading her through the burning trees which breathe out emeralds.
Time to do a little singing. The Montana Women's Chorus is going to lead you in a Ziggy Marley song called Give a Little Love. Please welcome Sarah on the bass. We just got this together yesterday, so give her a hand, Sarah. Living in this crazy world, so caught up in that confusion, nothing is making sense for me and you. Maybe we can find a way, there's got to be a solution, how to make a brighter day. What do? We've got to give a little love, have a little hope, make this world a little better. Try a little more, harder than before. Let's do what we can do together. we have someone named Melissa Romano. I saw someone walking around with a Melissa Romano sign. Melissa Romano is a passionate advocate for students, teachers, and quality education in Montana. She began her teaching career in 2004 with Helena School District. She's a recipient of the National Science Foundation's Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. Acknowledging her accomplishments as a second grade teacher, kindergarten teacher, fourth grade teacher, and instructional K-8 mathematics coach. She is the 2018 Montana Teacher of the Year. Melissa's leadership and standards work at the local, state, and national level and have created opportunities for educators to collaborate and produce exemplary lessons for students. Ms. Romano was one of 130 teachers chosen nationwide to share lessons on the Better Lesson website, creating a year's worth of classroom-ready math lessons with video reflections. Additionally, she worked as a science master teacher and as an instructional coach, delivering personalized professional development to teachers nationwide. Please welcome a public servant, Melissa Romano.
Hello, friends and allies. How's everyone doing? Are you ready to get our state and country back on track? My name is Melissa Romano. I'm running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and I am honored to be here today with you with so many inspiring, incredible women. Thank you. Like so many of us, I'm concerned about the decisions being made today and the devastating impact they will have on future generations. For nearly 4 years, we have seen our elected officials attack public education and push school privatization, denying our children an equal opportunity to reach their full potential. Chipping away at public institutions will spell disaster for generations to come and do immense harm to young women. Public schools are where our daughters, our nieces, our granddaughters learn that they can accomplish anything, regardless of their zip code. They explore new ideas and experience new things. They take an interest in a new subject and sometimes surprise themselves. They may even find a spark in math or science that propels them into a career in outer space. When girls receive a quality public education, our communities thrive and our country evolves. We cannot expect our country to change if our kids are being denied their constitutional right to a quality public education. Their future is at stake. When it comes time to put our children first, we need strong education leaders and advocates at all levels of government. We need leaders who will not be silent when it comes to providing educational opportunities for our youngest learners. We need leaders who will not be silent when it comes to school funding. We need leaders who will not be silent when our children's rights to a quality public education are jeopardized. We need women to be those leaders, but not just any woman. Women who care about other people, women who care about our children, women who lift others up rather than tearing them down.
Women who look out for the interests of everyone, not just the few who can afford an education. I believe we can do better. I know we will do better in November. When you leave here today, leave here with more conviction and determination than you arrived with. Keep fighting, call your elected officials, write letters, attend more rallies, and vote. Make sure your friends and family vote. And when you get tired, remember why you're doing all of this. To fix the wrongs of today and commit to the promise of tomorrow. I'm Melissa Romano, and with you, we can create a brighter future for generations to come. Thank you.
Education is a human right. Let's say it again. Education is a human right. Education is a human right. Education is a human right. Last time, education is a human right. Yes, I am a proud product of public education. Who else is? Yes. I want to take a moment to thank Delaney Toon, right next to me, signing in today. Accessible to all. I encourage each and every one of you, every place you go, to demand that our spaces are accessible to all people. I'm now pleased to introduce my friend, Jessica Lahr, a Helena native and a University of Montana graduate. Jessica has years of experience providing direct services to children, and specifically those in the mental health field. She is the outreach coordinator with the Montana Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. Woo, I love that group. MCADSV is a membership organization of individuals and organizations working to end domestic violence, sexual violence in Montana. She works to increase awareness and understanding of domestic and sexual violence through public education and engagement. Jessica is passionate about reproductive and social justice, and we are so glad she is with us here today. Welcome, Jessica.
Hello, everyone. I first would like to thank the organizers on behalf of my organization, and thank you for inviting us to be a part of this event. And I want to thank all of you for showing up as well, because showing up is a crucial first step in an active change. We all have privilege in one way or another, and those of us with white privilege especially need to show up. We need to create platforms for our Black and Indigenous, queer, trans, disabled, low-income, oppressed, and disenfranchised neighbors to have a voice and have a say in how policies are created and how our communities are run. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that I am a able-bodied, white, cisgendered woman being given a platform and a stage to speak, shared with mostly other white women. And as an ally, it is my duty to advocate for those who do not have a seat at this table. As others have mentioned, but it is worth repeating, as we celebrate the anniversary of the 19th Amendment this year, we cannot forget that many women of color, particularly Black and Indigenous women, did not have access to the polls until the Civil Rights Act. The struggle and fight still continues for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color to participate in this system, in addition to receiving true justice within our criminal justice system. My organization recognizes that people of color and other targeted groups have experienced violence, hatred, and discrimination for centuries, and that this oppression is often less overt and more insidious. All forms of oppression, including racism, sexism, xenophobia, and homophobia, play a role in the pervasive existence of gender-based violence. And unless we challenge and deconstruct systems of oppression, violence will continue. Indigenous women experience the highest rates of sexual and domestic violence, yet families are left without help in locating their missing sisters, mothers, and daughters. Everyone deserves to feel safe and live free from violence, but systematic barriers time and time again fail those who are most marginalized. The Montana Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence spends countless hours advocating on behalf of our member programs and the survivors that they serve, educating our elected officials about the impacts that policies have on individuals who've experienced violence or who are currently experiencing violence. We support smart policies that are victim-centered, trauma-informed, and culturally competent. We also advocate to support funding that keeps these life-saving services available in our most rural and isolated communities. When we make appropriate resources accessible to the most marginalized individuals, everyone benefits. So what can you do? This is mostly for white folks in the audience, but stay informed and do your research, and not just on the issues that impact you. Think of whose perspectives and experiences are not being heard and how you can provide a means to elevate these voices. Be more than an ally, become an accomplice. Dr. John Paul, who's an LGBTQ leader from California, said, "By being an accomplice, you are telling the whole world that you recognize the system for what it really is and that you are willing and able to do the work to help dismantle it." Call or write to your elected officials about policies that impact survivors of violence and other marginalized people. Hold your friends and family members accountable by challenging their beliefs and behaviors that create a culture that allows violence and oppression to exist and thrive. And keep showing up. Your activism cannot end after today. Thank you.
And speaking of acting and joining, there are a number of amazing organizations with tables here today, with information, and with sheets to sign up and join. And so I ask each of you to think about that organization that you've seen from afar, that you know about, and you just haven't taken that opportunity to donate, to volunteer, to join. And I ask you to make a pledge with me today. I will join. I will join. One more time. I will join. Thank you. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Whitney Williams. Whitney Williams is a Montana businesswoman whom, as CEO of Williams Works, has worked alongside Fortune 500 companies, charities, and citizens to solve complex problems, from disaster response to the struggles of farmers, the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, the lack of government services, and the threat of big money to our public lands. We are so pleased to have with us today, and I welcome Whitney Williams.
Good afternoon. I'm Whitney Williams, and I'm running to become your next governor. Montana is a state that was built by strong women, a state that sent the first woman to the United States Congress and soon will send the second. And I think it's a state where it's well past time to put a woman in charge. It's a total honor to be here, and thank you all for being here as well. I come from a long line of strong Montana women. My family homesteaded here in 1864, and 6 generations of my family went on to become waitresses and miners and maids, and they, like a lot of your families, helped build this state. And today, as we celebrate our ancestors, we also celebrate the centuries of Native women who came before us. Our beloved Denise Juneau recently endorsed Denise recently endorsed me in my race for governor, and I was at an event with her, and I said, I'm a 6th generation Montanan. And Denise was in the corner, and she said, I'm 50th. But I am proud of my great-great-great-grandma, Ellen, who came to Montana on a covered wagon with Jim Bridger. She built a new life for herself here. She ran the family farm near Jefferson City, and her grit and hard work and determination was passed down from generation to generation, making its way to my extraordinary mother, Carol Williams. Carol Griffith Williams is sitting right there in the front row. Thank you for that. My mom spent over a decade as a state legislator. She was an educator, early Head Start teacher before that, a peacemaker running an extraordinary nonprofit for years, and she became the first woman ever elected to become our Senate Majority Leader. And thank you, Mom. And she fought for full-day kindergarten. And she fought for every Montana kid until she got it done, because that's what women do when you put women in charge. Mom's relentlessness and her constant glass ceiling shattering instilled those values in me and led me to start a business. Her work became mine. And as you just heard, my company is all about solving tough problems, particularly helping women survivors. We've taken on a whole bunch of big issues, like working with law enforcement and companies to create tools to find children more quickly who have been sex trafficked. We've helped put a spotlight on the epidemic of murdered and missing Indigenous women, and we've provided legal assistance to victims of rape who can't afford attorneys. And now, as the CEO of my own company, like many of you small business owners, I balance budgets, I manage payroll, I pay taxes, and I work every day to figure out how to make my business work. And I'm running for governor to protect what I believe are our core Montana values. Because Greg Gianforte would set Montana back for generations. Just take a look at his record in the Congress. In a country where 52 women every month are shot by their partners, he voted against the International Violence Against Women Act. Despite the fact that the vast majority of Montanans believe women have the right to make their own healthcare decisions, just last week, he sent a letter to the Supreme Court asking them to take a look at overturning Roe v. Wade. And though it's far past time for women to receive equal work for equal pay, he chooses to use his personal considerable wealth to fund organizations opposing efforts to close the pay gap for women, not to mention the rollbacks for the LGBTQ community. And we have to stop him, and together we're going to. So my mom was lucky enough to meet Jeannette Rankin at her 90th birthday, and Kathleen was talking about that march that Jeannette led in the 70s against the Vietnam War, and Jeannette was sitting there, and my mom walked up to her and said, "Jeannette, tell me what you want to be remembered for." And of course, she had voted against both those world wars, and she was proud of those votes. But it was probably what she was most known for. And she said, "Carol, thank you for asking that question, because I want to be known as the only woman to have cast a vote to give women the right to vote." Pretty extraordinary, right? So with all of the graces of Montanan, I would say, in the spirit of my mom and Jeannette and all of you and the women who came before us, I ask the question, what do we want to be known for? Do we want to be known for putting a billionaire with a criminal record in the governor's house? Or do we want to move this state into the future? I think it's time to send a woman who's been working on behalf of those struggling for her whole life to the governor's office. I'm Whitney Williams, and I'm running for governor.
All right, everybody, how you holding up? All right? Yeah, all right. Who's in charge? Women in charge. Who's in charge? Women in charge. Having said that, I just want to take a moment there's no way we could have all of the candidates who are champions for human rights to get up here, but I do want to give a shout out to John Muse. He's here. In fact, he's here on the stage. He is a candidate for U.S. Senate. And John, give a wave. Give a wave. Thank you. Thank you. And you know, it's a tough row to hoe to run for elected office. So we all appreciate, we who run appreciate all of your support. So I'm going to take just a quick minute and ask who all is out there running for elected office, regardless of what it is. Raise your hand high and give a shout. Yeah, all right, yeah. Who here heads a business or a nonprofit organization, women or men? Give a shout. We're going to give a shout out to you. Yay! Who here is a survivor? It can be surviving whatever. I think everybody should be shouting now. All right. Thank you. Now we're going to have some music.
Every year in the 80s, there used to be a Jeannette Rankin run in Great Falls, and I'm trying to remember who was in charge of that. Was it the YWCA in Great Falls? And I was asked to sing a couple of years for that, and in 1988, I was flying on my way to Great Falls and thought, well, I could write a song about Jeannette Rankin, and this song is called You Ran For Us. Sang it for many female candidates for various offices, and we'd like to sing it now, and we think that somebody's going to show up here in a form. Let's see. You strode into Congress in 1917, the very first woman those halls had ever seen. Well, you brought some fresh air to that cigar-smoke-filled scene. Now we're running in your name, Jeannette, 'cause you ran for us, 'cause you ran for us. You stood for us. Let's face it, you stuck out your neck for us. You marched and you marched. We're still marching today. of women's rights here in Montana. And our next speaker, Nancy Leifer, came to Montana from Wisconsin in 1971 to study at the University of Montana, where she earned bachelor's, master's, and PhD degrees. She also holds a master's degree from Princeton University. She worked professionally on affordable housing at both the local and state level for 20 years, and after retirement, joined the League of Women Voters, serving as co-president of the Missoula League and president of the Montana League of Women Voters Board. Please welcome Nancy Leifer.
Hello, all you voters out there, and all you soon-to-be voters out there. I'd like to just take a few moments to reflect back 100 years ago on what was happening. Women did not vote. Women were not political. Jeannette Rankin was political. She actually worked to get the right for women to vote in I think, 13 different states in addition to Montana. Yeah. But 100 years ago today, the 19th Amendment was midstream in the state ratification process. 26 states had ratified, they had 10 more to go. In anticipation of ratification, being confident that it was going to be ratified, the National American Suffrage Association met in February of 1920 in Chicago, a full 6 months before ratification was final, and formed the League of Women Voters, a mighty political experiment designed to help 20 million women carry out their new responsibilities as voters. So this February 14th, 2020, the League of Women Voters will be 100 years old. From the beginning, the League has been a nonpartisan organization that does not endorse candidates or political parties, but helps women learn how to be active and how government works and how to be part of that whole scene. We help voters understand issues, and we help people participate in our political system. So while we know today how it all came out 100 years ago, the ratification of the 19th Amendment was by no means a sure thing. By the end of March in 1920, 35 states had ratified the amendment, but by the summer of 1920, things had stalled. The states where support was strong had all ratified. Only the southern states were left, and their support was not looking good. The best hope for the final state to ratify was Tennessee. If you haven't read it yet, I highly encourage each one of you to read the book, The Woman's Hour by Elaine Weiss. It tells the behind-the-scenes stories of what happened in Tennessee, of how it came to be that that state did ratify the 19th Amendment, came down to one vote. I don't know how many of you know this story. That one, well, I should not tell you. I should have you read the book. In any case, it was a page-turner of a book. Even knowing how it ended, I read the whole thing straight through. I couldn't put it down. Because it was not taken for granted that this was going to pass. We had major forces arrayed against us back then. And I encourage you to read this book to begin to understand all of the forces that were in play back then that divided women. And a lot of those forces are still present among women today. That's something that we need to pay attention to. But I'd like to just go back for a moment and recap about 6 things I think are useful to bring forward from that time that the women's suffrage movement got the 19th Amendment passed. The first one is that the women suffragists got the 19th Amendment passed. They modified the U.S. Constitution, they amended the U.S. Constitution. No mean feat to do. And they did it where 33 of the states, of the 48 states that were there at the time, women could not vote in 33 of those states. So what an amazing thing. So my first insight for us to draw from all of that is, women, we need to dream big. We are capable of great achievements at great odds. The second thing I want to point out, the 19th Amendment did not happen overnight. It took 72 years from the first meeting in Seneca Falls in 1848 to the final ratification in August of 1920. So my second insight for all of us today, significant change requires time. The third thing I'd like to mention is that women suffragists experienced public ostracism, hate campaigns, physical violence, imprisonment, hunger strikes, and forced feeding. Some were publicly condemned as traitors during the First World War. So my third insight for all of us today, women are strong when we have commitment, patience, persistence, endurance, and mutual support to persevere in the face of opposition. Yes. Women's support for suffrage was not universal. There were strong organizations of women fighting against women's suffrage, who felt that women should not be involved in the world of politics. Before the passage of the 19th Amendment, most women in this country were not political. Again, Elaine Weiss tells the story in the Women's Hour of the divisions that are present today that have their roots back there 100 years ago. So my fourth insight is this. We cannot assume that all women support women's rights and empowerment. We must reach out to all women, listen with compassion and understanding to the experiences that have shaped what each of us believe, if we are ever to move forward together. Not all women were welcome in the suffrage movement. Women of color were largely excluded from the white women national suffrage movement. Voting rights of women of color were sacrificed as a political expediency to gain support in the South. White suffragist leaders campaigned in Tennessee by stating that the 19th Amendment would not increase voting by black women because Tennessee could prevent them from voting by using the same tactics that were being used to prevent black men from voting. So the experience of the passage of the 19th Amendment was not a model of coalition building and inclusion. So my fifth insight for us today, the political betrayal of women of color in the suffragist movement 100 years ago serves to remind us today in the 21st century that the ends do not justify the means. Moral strength comes from being inclusive and maintaining the integrity of how we work together. And lastly, the passage of the 19th Amendment, as we've already heard, did not ensure that all women could vote. For most, it was the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that created the legal grounds for them to be able to exercise their right to vote. But after that was passed, it still took challenges, challenging state laws and local practices in the courts to actually enforce the Voting Rights Act. Montana has its own record of disenfranchisement, directed particularly at Native Americans. From the 1890s to 1971, Montana required a person to pay state property tax in order to be able to vote, effectively disenfranchising Native Americans on the reservations. Montana used to have laws prohibiting voting precincts on reservations, while also requiring a voter to live in a precinct for at least 30 days before the election. Catch-22, no eligible voters on reservations. More recently, in 2012, 3 reservations in Montana won a suit under the Voting Rights Act that required counties to provide voter registration and polling places on reservations. Yes. But I have to tell you that since 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court has been gutting the Voting Rights Act. Yes, they have been. In 2013, they effectively removed the requirement for federal oversight of election procedures in jurisdictions that had a history of discrimination. There are states now that are using this newfound freedom, and we've heard about them in the news, to remove legitimate voters from the voting rolls by targeting certain voters and doing it pretty much in a discriminatory practice, sort of what happened in Georgia. Even more recently, in 2019, the Supreme Court ruled that federal courts have no role at all in preventing political gerrymandering. So the last insight I want to share with you is that the battle for women's right to vote, the battle for the right to vote, is not over. The battle for free and fair elections requires our continual vigilance, action, and support. The League of Women Voters is carrying this fight into our second century. Nothing is more fundamental to our democracy than that every adult citizen have the right to vote and be able to exercise that right to vote in free and fair elections. Progress on all other issues depends on the quality of our democracy. It depends on who we elect. Free and fair elections allow us to hold our representatives accountable to the constituents who elect them. So as we march today to celebrate women and to celebrate our collective power to make the world a better place, I urge us all, one, of course, to vote. But I also urge us all to reflect upon these insights from the past and commit ourselves to being the very best that we can be for the future together. Thank you.